pleasure to get to talk to you today. My name is Matt Lester. I'm the defensive coordinator and offensive line coach at Madeira High School here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Today I want to talk about combining zone and gap schemes for offensive linemen and for your offense as a whole. So just to give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to discuss some effective ways of teaching zone and gap schemes to offensive linemen. We're going to explain the teaching carryover between plays, how some of the drill work and some of the language you can use in gap scheme or in zone scheme can translate one to another. And we're going to discuss ways to utilize both schemes in the flow of a game. So as a play caller, we will be talking about inside and outside zone. I would say just like we run our offense, 70% of this talk is going to be geared towards power counter, gap scheme, and then inside zone scheme out of 11 personnel. So most of the zone we'll talk about today is going to be split zone, and then the gap plays, again, power and counter. To give you some background on myself, I already said that I was the defensive coordinator and offensive line coach at Madeira High School. It's a Division V school here in Ohio, which is the third smallest from the bottom. We've had some success over the past few years alongside my head coach, Chris Stewart, who is an amazing human being and a great guy to work for. He's also very, very skilled and active at building a great culture. And I think that the biggest thing I've learned from him is that you just follow good people and everything else will work out. And he's been a great person to work for. I've had the ability to work at the college level as a running backs coach at Mount St. Joe and as the head coach at Batavia High School. So even though I'm on the defensive side of the ball now, I've been an offensive coach most of my life, and an offensive line coach and offensive lineman most of my life. So I was able to play at the collegiate level for a year. Then I transitioned to a fullback role and finished out my college career playing that. So I've spent most of my time in the trenches, and I'm very passionate about teaching. A little bit about our philosophy. The biggest thing that I try to relay to players is that we want to lead through our attitude and actions. We want to be standard bearers for our program, with how hard we work and how aggressive we are. And then it's all about a brotherhood of trust and commitment. If you don't have trust and commitment on the offensive line, it won't work. It's the ultimate team position in the ultimate team game. So that's what we really try to emphasize and set our culture within our unit. And if you don't have this for your position group or your side of the football, I would highly suggest that you do this to help get everyone on the same page. And our goals are simple. We want to protect the quarterback, and we want to grade out at 85% each game. So we grade on assignment, technique, and finish. I think we do a really efficient job of grading. And I know as a young coach, it's something that took me a long time to learn how to grade. If you are interested in learning more about grading offensive linemen, I'd love to talk to you. You can reach out to me at Twitter or via email, which I'll give you at the end of this presentation. So here are our yearly stats. We took over the program in 2018. Madeira is a school that's in the suburbs of Cincinnati. It's in a very, very competitive league, Cincinnati Hills League. It's produced a state champion, multiple playoff teams, and since we've been there in 2018. So we coach very smart kids. It's a high academic school. A lot of times our kids are a little undersized. They're not the most athletic, but they all have played sports of some sort their whole life, so they're pretty good movers. We definitely have kids that are quick and kids that are really coachable. But in our league, and I think in most leagues, it's important to be able to establish the run. If you look here, we've ran for around 1,500 yards each year. We've been about a 60-40 split of our run-to-pass ratio. And we've been fortunate enough to make the playoffs each year. This past year, we made the playoffs and won our first playoff game. Obviously, everyone in the state of Ohio made the playoffs, but we were able to get the monkey off our back and win the first playoff game in program history. And, if you look at those games we won, those are games we were effectively able to run the ball in. So I think that it's important to be able to establish the run. Obviously, I think that starts with offensive linemen, and I think that you need some tools in your toolbox to be able to run an effective offense, and particularly I think that you need both zone and gap complements to be able to, from a game to game, week to week basis, to be able to get the most out of your kids. Here's some stats breakdown for you from this past year. I think if you look back the past in 2019, it would be very similar to this. But we ran if you combine inside zone and outside zone, and then if you combine gap and then our others mostly our goal line plays, which was a gap type blocking. So we were almost dead even in how much we called our zone versus gap scheme. We're a little more successful with gap this year. I think that had to do with having some bigger offensive linemen and a running back that was good at getting downhill right away. And again, you always have to tailor your schemes to your talent. Some years you have a back that runs zone better. Some years you have a back that runs gap better. For us, if we can run power, we're going to run power. We ran zone read a lot, but I think that number skewed a little bit. Zone read was kind of a base play for us. So a lot of those snaps were JV snaps. But if you look at power, counter, and then split zone, that's the heart of our offense. We probably could have ran a little more outside zone. That's a great compliment that we'll talk about as well. But again, this zone and gap scheme is something that we utilize both in our offense. It's a little bit about teaching methods. I think that it's important to have a philosophy of how you want to teach things. For me, as an offensive line coach, I believe in teaching whole part whole. The players have to understand the big picture of what you want to accomplish on each play. Understanding that zone, everyone's blocking to the play side, and then gap is basically the inverse where everyone's blocking to the backside. I think when we take for granted the players can't understand it or think that they do already understand it, and we miss that part. And when they do understand the concept of what we're trying to do, they can have more success or a better chance of being successful in blocking each play. I think being consistent in your schemes is the second most important thing. We run 4 different run schemes and 4 different pass schemes, and we install those schemes in the first week or so, and then we don't change them. We might change backfield actions, motions, things like that, but we stay consistent in those schemes, and I think it allows us to do a little bit more. And then when you're teaching offensive linemen, I always believe it's important to build from the ground up. It starts with footwork. Footwork ties into body position, and then body position ties into hand placement and head placement. It's going to get you in the right spot for your block, and then always coaching the finish on every single drill that you do. And the last thing is probably is just a reminder for all of us. The stuff I'm going to be talking about today is not rocket science. It's stuff that you've probably heard, you've probably done before, but life and football is 20% knowledge and 80% behavior. You have to be intentional each and every day as a coach with what you're going to try to accomplish. If you're not intentional, if you're not disciplined enough to do the same drills every day, to coach like your butt's on fire when you're out there in individuals, and really sit down and think about what you want the kids to accomplish, you're not going to maximize your players, and you're not going to maximize your team. So zone for us, inside or outside zone, is the same thing. We always want to introduce the concept first. Everyone's going to block to their play side gap. We're going to leave the backside end man on the line of scrimmage. If the tag read is attached, the backside end man is being read by the quarterback. If split is attached, the H back, regardless if he's on the same side of the call or the opposite side of the call, no matter where he is at in the formation, he's going to trap the backside end man on the line of scrimmage. Our rule is covered or uncovered. And then the biggest, we preach our rules early on, but as we get from a week-to-week basis, we can typically know our calls based on the front of our opponent. We'll talk a little bit about this as we go through this install. So I won't spend a whole lot of time on the rules, or the point I want to get out of this talk is teaching you how to carry over drill work and to carry over rules. So I don't want to make it too basic, but then again, I think it's important to cover your bases. For us, covered means there's a lineman or a defensive lineman on the line of scrimmage, lined up within the framework of your body. So right here, our nose is covered and our tackle is covered. If you're covered, you're going to step with your play side foot to your play side gap, and you're going to block this guy. If you don't get a call, you assume that you're one-on-one. So you're going to punch both hands into his chest, aiming for right underneath his shoulder pads, and you're going to try to drive him vertically in towards the play side. Our track is not quite a 45-degree angle, and it's not quite a 100 or straight up and down. It's somewhere in between that. So it's vertical in nature, but we still want to get some movement to the play side gap. If you're uncovered, you're going to make a double team call with the lineman, the next lineman down who is covered. So in this case, the guard doesn't have anyone on the framework of his body. He's going to double team to the lineman to his right because it is zone right. And they're going to work towards the near backer. The backer that we're going to ID every play is the mic. The center and zone scheme is always responsible for the mic. So that makes it pretty simple. The guard knows that he's going to double team with the center. They both know they'll double team to the mic, and they'll communicate that before the play. And that the tackle and the guard will do the same thing. The guard and the tackle are going to set their backer call based off of the center, so they know that if they're doubling to the mic right here, they're just going to go to the next backer down. And then the backside tackle is always uncovered. He's going to, no matter, unless this guy is in his gap, he's going to rip inside and go to the backer behind the mic or the will backer. We have different calls for walk-ups, and if teams want to, jump around different fronts, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But this is just a base odd front. Odd front meaning there's 3 down linemen. But after you've played 2 or 3 teams that are an odd team, and we are an odd team on defense, our center, who communicates all of our calls, can run up to the line and just quickly say ace deuce. So ace meaning backside guard and center, deuce meaning front side tackle and front side guard. And then we can go that much faster. Our first year we used a lot of tempo. We use less of it this year, but still yet you want to hustle to, even if you're a huddle team, you want to hustle to the line, make your calls quickly and run your play. This would be zone right split. Split just means that if he's over here or if he's over here, he's going to kick out the backside end man on the line of scrimmage. And our running back, his path is going to be backside A gap first. So if it's zone right, he's looking at that left A gap first. Then he's either going to bend it in the front side A or he's going to bounce it back to the backside B. I would love to talk to you more about zone paths for running backs if you would like more information on that. But that's just the simple way that our running back's going to read zone. It's the same thing for zone to a 3-tech. We like to double team the 1 if we can. This depends on the alignment of him. But we know odd, we're going to get an ace call. And then split, zone right split, even though the wing is aligned close to the end, he knows that split means he's still going to kick him out. We like to make the track for the running back look very similar to power, counter, and zone. So all those plays really accomplish the same thing, and that's hitting the A gap downhill as fast as we possibly can. So gap is the inverse, and this is what we tell our kids. Zone, everyone blocks toward their play side gap. Gap, everyone blocks toward their backside gap. So if all else fails, if you have to throw someone in the game that's never played tackle before, or a guard that's playing center, or vice versa, they understand the concept of what's trying to get done. We also drill that we're going to leave the mic and the play side end man on the line of scrimmage. So it's literally like if you take zone, flip it around, and don't block the mic. Power for us is going to tell the H-back to trap the end man and the guard to wrap for the mic. Counter is going to tell the H-back to wrap for the mic and the guard to trap the end man. Simple rule is gap down backer. We established that early on, but again, by the time that we get into the season, we play mostly we play mostly even front teams. We'll know how to block power against the even front. We'll know where the double team needs to go. To talk a little bit about that, and just to give you an example. So power for us, We know odd is ace, and we know that we're going to leave the mic, so we're going to double back to the wheel. You'll have one double team on 11 personnel, and again, 11 personnel for us is we very rarely, if ever, put this guy in line with the ball. He's always off the ball. We believe that gives us a better chance to kick out, and it also gives us more consistent fronts without adding another man to the blocking surface. And it allows us to run up to the line and communicate that much faster. We see an even front, we know that we're going to deuce back to the wheel. So that's what we talk about. We know through our preparation, we know through our rules, we know through knowing the concept of what we're trying to accomplish. That zone and gap are really the same thing, just flipped the other way. We can block a bunch of different defenses. Here's an example of our zone play to jump back to zone against a bear front. So we know if all else fails, right, this is a bear front with a walk up, it really creates a 6-man front. If all else fails, we can just make a zone call. It's zone left, everyone's going to block their gap to their left, to their play side, and we'll be one-on-one. Gap, again, is just the opposite. Excuse me. So anytime we see any other front other than even or odd, I call that a garbage front or an other front. We'll go back to our base rules. So here's a bear front. We know, okay, bear front, we're going to make a down call. So out counter right, we're going to block down to the left. If the center ever is the center who makes all of our calls at the line, if he ever is in doubt, he can always call zone or he can always call down. So why do we want to run both of these things? The nature of these schemes complement each other very well. Inside zone is a vertical push play. Like we said before, and gap is a horizontal push play. We want to rip open holes in the line of scrimmage. We will run gap scheme until they stop it. We think that if you can get down blocks at the hole, a kick out at the point of attack, and then a lead through the hole, we think that that's the best way to go. And if teams aren't penetrating real hard, we're going to go ahead and run, and we're able to get that guard or wing back leading to the hole. We're going to keep running gap. Inside zone is our answer for backside run through in 11 personnel. So biggest way teams like to stop any sort of power counter is to blitz that vacate area for where the guard is, and split zone's a way to really shore that up. A great red zone play. It's a great goal line short yardage play for us. And then outside zone is our answer for internal overload. So if all the pressure, if everything's packed inside, we can always count on having a kid that we can get the ball to the perimeter to, and get the defense to loosen back up. And then I think one important thing to say is you have to have other answers as well to protect your run. We probably ran less RPO this year than what we did before, but RPOs where you can read the force player or read the Mike linebacker are going to protect your best runs. Having different formations, 2x2, 3x1 variations, your bunches, your stacks, those are things that can dictate to the defense and help you get an advantage. And then I think the key is you don't want to have too many answers, because the more surfaces you create, the more fronts you're going to see. The more fronts you're going to see, the less your players are going to be able to execute. I think that it's very important, if you're going to be a tight end in line with the ball team, you should run that most of your plays. If you're going to be a wing sniffer team without a tight end, you should do that most of your plays, because it's going to make everything very consistent for your linemen. And then again, it goes back to being detailed in how you practice in order to be effective at both of these schemes. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to actually practice this. So for us, again, it's about being detail oriented. Every day, or Monday through Wednesday when we do indie drills, our indie routine is going to be pretty much the same. We have 4 different periods. They're going to be about 5 minutes apiece. And on Monday, we're going to work on our zone scheme drill work. On Tuesday, we're going to work on our gap scheme drill work. And on Wednesday, we're going to work on outside zone and then whatever we need to clean up in gap or zone scheme from Monday and Tuesday. And again, I can't reiterate enough. This is where you actually get better. And I want to spend a little bit more time talking about this because if you bring energy and you have a detailed plan, your kids will get better. And regardless of if they're good or bad or somewhere in between, this is how you maximize your players, which going back to our philosophy is what we want to try to do at Madeira. So routine for us is how we open up every practice. I guess you would say this is a pre-practice thing for the offensive lineman. We're going to line up in 5-man lines, 5 yards apart. We'll go as far as we need to go. And we're going to work on our footwork on air. The procedure is we're going to do our first step, then we're going to do our second step and punch, then we're going to drive for 5 yards, and then finish with high hips and high hands at the end of 5 yards. We're going to do all 5 of our steps left and right. So our lateral step is a step, it's stepping with your play side foot laterally. You're going to keep your toe pointed the same way as it is in your stance. For reach step, we're going to point our toe at a 45-degree angle and we're going to try to replace the toe of our foot with our heel. An open step, we're going to throw open our hips and point our toes toward the sideline. We're going to see in a second how those bleed into the rest, to all of our blocks. And then post and kick steps are our pass pro steps that we do when we do those every day. We do all 5 of these steps every day, but we really emphasize those in pass pro and not the run game as much. We do all 5 of these steps right and left, and once we've gotten this installed, we get this done in about 5 minutes. And then one other thing I forgot to mention is I stand up here as a coach. I will, direct traffic, if you will. I'll say, all right, lateral step, first step, ready, go. Blow the whistle, they do the first step, then they reset. There are more details with how low we want them to be. We want them, when they take all their steps, to be so low that their offhand can tap against the turf. And we always have them early on check out their feet to make sure they're right. And so we're going to hold that first step a little bit longer, or second step a little bit longer, just to make sure our feet are on the right spot. But as we progress along in the year, we typically don't do that all the time. I know some coaches are, at different levels aren't as big of sticklers on steps, that it might be a little bit antiquated. I learned this from Tom Herman, who's a great wing T coach. And since I've started using a routine about 5 years ago, I've seen the carryover. I've definitely seen it for younger offensive linemen and even going down to the junior high level. We've implemented it there. So I still think that it's important to do, and it's a great warm up, if nothing else. So our one-on-one blocks, to backtrack, we don't do anything crazy with our one-on-one blocks. We don't really do anything too crazy within our program, just trying to be fundamentally sound. But we do all of our one-on-one blocks in the chutes as a progression. So we'll work from the fit position, then we'll work from the ground, and then we'll kind of just go from there. On Monday, we're going to work on our zone block using a lateral step. On Tuesday, we're going to work on our down block or our gap block using a reach step or an open step. And on Wednesday, we're going to work on reaching to an end or reaching to a backer. We don't always use chutes for reach blocks, but definitely a heavy emphasis on Monday and Tuesday. And then we always use boards inside of the chutes, but some days we get out the boards. We'll do some one-on-one stuff if we feel like we need to work on toughness and driving people off the football. And then a lot of times on Wednesday, or if we can make some time here on Monday or Tuesday, we'll work sleds. I think sleds really important for just working on firing off the ball hard and developing that leg drive and really that mentality that, hey, we're going to take the most painful, torturous object out here and we're going to drive it around the field while those running backs are ever, catching passes or doing whatever they're doing. So it's all about that mentality and setting the standards, I think, with high school kids. And then, honestly, I think the best real work we have are our pods. So these are our base pods. On Monday, we're going to work our inside zone pod. So we're going to do a 2-on-2 double team drill. I drew this up with a defensive lineman head up on the guard, or tackle or whoever. Just work an uncovered lineman and a covered lineman. But we'll work this guy as a wider shade. We'll work this guy as a tighter shade. We'll work him in all different positions. But the main thing is that we're just running zone right and then zone left and working our double team up to the backer. But we do that on Monday. On Tuesday, we work our gap double team. So we know, hey, zone right, this is how we double team. So if we're talking zone plays within our team period or inside run period, kids know to use a zone double team. For gap, we're going to use a gap double team. We're going to step to our backside gap, and we're going to use one of those steps we talked about, an open step. Depending on the width of the defender, this would be an open step because he is down from us, meaning he is one lineman over. Here we would probably use a reach or a lateral step, and we're going to double back. The double team technique is the same. We still want to get hip to hip. We still want to split this man in half on a double team, but we want to drive this guy vertically on zone. We want to drive this guy horizontally on gap. And on outside zone, it's kind of the inverse of gap, which is how we teach it. We're just going to open step and reach step. We're going to try to rip through the outside armpit and get, as a covered guy, we're going to try to get our head on the outside armpit, and for the uncovered guy, working up to that mic. And we have more coaching points for that. You know, we talk a lot with the cover guy about dragging that backhand to make sure that this guy doesn't knife through the backside gap. We talk about, you know, the uncovered guy, if he's empty on his third step, he goes to the backer, and just really taking people where they want to go faster and they want to get there. But for all of these things, the coaching points are really similar. We're going to use 4 hands on the down lineman and 4 eyes on the linebacker. And then we're going to try to have the correct landmarks for our head and hand placement. We'll split this guy in half, and then with our hands and each person is going to have an assigned number depending on if you're the cover guy or uncovered guy. And then once it's time to disengage, we're going to use a you or me call. That's going to be made by the uncovered lineman. And then the guy that's remaining on the down lineman, he's going to scoot to cover, meaning he's going to try to scoot his feet and his hips around to cover the spot that the lineman who just went to the backer left. And the reason we do that is because if the linebacker is filling that spot, it means the running back is most likely going there. So those are our base pods. Some of these other pods that we use, there's just an example of one. This is what I call a gap circuit. Now, you could use all of these things together. For us, I have myself, and I have my defensive line coach who assists me with offensive line. And I think it's really good to break apart kids and give them some one-on-one time if you can. So a lot of the times, you know, I'll work with tackles and centers. He'll work with guards and wings. The tackle is we're working on their post wheel hinge. You know, sometimes we'll put this guy in the gap and make sure that that he knows he has to cut off anything that goes into his play side gap for a backside tackle and gap scheme. And then he's going to post hard inside, and he's going to wheel out and hinge back to cut off penetration. You know, centers will be by themselves working on snapping the ball to each other and just getting their head across the nose guard on a gap block, filling for a pulling guard. We'll line him up as a true nose. We'll line him up as a 3 technique. We'll line him up as a 1 technique. But the main coaching point for that is if he's penetrating, getting your head across, and if he's trying to read, getting your head behind. And then for guards and wings, we run power and counter a lot, so it's important to work these different scenarios. You know, for this is an example of power. So the guard is either going to kick this end out, which is what he's going to try to do, and if all else fails and he can't do that, he's going to try to log him by attacking his outside shoulder. That means he's probably squeezed pretty hard. You're going to attack outside shoulder, get your hips around, and get your butt to where the running back's going to go. And then this guard is going to be reading the wingback's block as he goes through. He's either going to lead through the hole in the mic, or he's going to wrap around in case of a log block. We'll do the same thing with counter, where he's the trapper and he's the wrapper, but just breaking those apart so you can get more eyes on individual pieces. And when we run our drills, the routine's 100%. One-on-one blocking is 100% effort and technique, but we usually use pads with those. And then our pods, it just depends. It's more of a technique-oriented drill, I would say. I usually tell the defense to go about 80%, 100% to the fit, then about 80% once you've gotten hit. You want to provide some resistance, but the whole goal of this is for the offensive line to have perfect technique, and the offensive line on our pods want to go 100%. And drills like this, it's normally with pads, but when we're in these sort of pods, we're usually without pads. And then when we're 100% as fast as possible in our inside run and team periods. So we'll watch a little bit of film, see if you have an idea of how this kind of carries over to the actual game field. I don't want to spend too much time with this because it's nothing crazy or special, but I think that film backs up the success of what we've been able to accomplish, and that the kids are actually getting this and it's working for us in our program. So here's an example of power versus an odd front. We run up to the football. We know odd front, we're going to ace the nose back to the will. This week we determined that this outside backer is not a factor, so we can go ahead and kick out the four-tech. The running back stays on his A-gap track, and we get a good gain. This next play is power against Wyoming High School, who was a state champion in 2018 and state semifinals in 19 and 20. It's a third down right here, early on in the game. Pretty important down. We hadn't scored from these guys in 2 years, and they really kicked our butts. But we came out and fought really hard this game against a great opponent, and we're able to have success running power. So you see here, the wingback sees the end squeezing. The guard knows he's going to go off his butt, and he's going to wrap because we logged here. And a lot of this carryover is from the gap circuit that we did in Indy that week. You look here, our center is getting his head across the body because he sees this guy's penetrating. Our backside tackle executes a decent step to his gap. I would have said that needed to be a little bit bigger, but he still gets the job done. And then we got a good deuce double team here on the 3 technique, back to the will. And we're able to get a good play against a great opponent. So I talked about using this in a flow of a game. Like we said, if we can run gap, we're going to run gap. I think split zone is such a great complement to power and counter, because when you see a team that's giving you fits with penetration, or that's just giving you some crazy fronts, like you see when you run the ball effectively, then you have an answer. So here we're down on the goal line. They're in what we would call an odd front, but really they have 8 or 9 guys close to the line of scrimmage. So instead of trying to beat our head off the wall and run a gap scheme with our guard leaving, we're just going to run split zone and shore everything up on the backside, get a kick out block, and try to let our running back find a crease. Check to the play. See here, he bangs it in the backside, he bends it back to the play side A gap, and he gets a good game. Now, I can't take much credit for this. I haven't called any plays at all since 2018. And even then, my head coach still called a lot of it. He's the primary play caller. He does a great job of recognizing all these things. And I just try to make sure that we're able to execute it up front when he calls it. So you can see here, this is some sort of 6-man front. Now, you might say it's kind of crazy to run to a 6-man front with I guess an 8-man box, but sometimes man coverage, the best answer is to run the football, and we will run the loaded boxes if we feel like we have the angles. And here with a linebacker who's 6 yards deep, we felt like we would trust our running back to be able to make a play. He did. But as you see, this was a zone call for us. We're going to block everything to our zone, which this would be a zone left split. So we block everything to our left gap. And we're off to the races. Now, don't get me wrong, we still will run power and counter against blitz. There's sometimes when teams are going to blitz, you can't always dictate and get the play call right. And then we make a gap call in that scenario. But we know if a team is going to run these sorts of fronts, we really like running zone split. Here's an example of our counter play, and I put this on here because it was honestly pretty poorly blocked. This defensive end right here was our defensive player of the year, and he just blows this play up, and it doesn't allow any movement to get back to these backers. But this is what we talked about, protecting your runs. So we protect our run here with jet motion. We want to run gap scheme. They've dictated that we can't. So we're going to have an answer to that, which our answer is jet motion. It takes care of both of these backers, what I would call eye candy. Our wing back, because we've drilled it, understands, how to get around the trash. He sees his guard gets caught up, makes a good block on the kick out. If you watch in slow-mo, neither of these linebackers are a factor because of the motion. And then the last thing I'll talk about is using outside zone. So, we want to run power, we want to run counter, we want to run the ball in the A gap for a number of reasons, but sometimes you can't. And having outside zone in your toolbox is a great complement. We just showed the jet motion. Well, this is the jet sweep. We've been running power very well against this team. We ran for about 300 yards against them, and they were a solid opponent. So they adjusted. They went to a bear front. When you run the ball well, teams are either going to overload the box or they're going to bring a lot of blitz or change their front or do something. So they go to a bear front. We run jet sweep outside of them. It negates the internal pressure, lets our athlete get a play in space and get a touchdown ultimately. And again, it's the drill work showing up on the film. We're getting our head on the outside to the outside armpit. We're swinging our butt around. Our wing is working on a reach block. You could arguably say our jet guy didn't make the best cut, but he was a good enough athlete. He trusted his speed and was able to get it done. And then here's a couple more outside zone cut-ups. This is what we talked about again, protecting your runs with formations, compressed formation, compressed everyone down in the box to where from the middle of the field all the way out to the sideline, there's no defenders. So we call a motion to get a +1 advantage and get a lead blocker. We do a good job of just getting our head to the right spot to that outside armpit, getting our butts around, and understanding conceptually that this play is going outside. So I need to step wide. I need to get my butt to the running back and block people and take care of people that way. They understand the concept. They've drilled it, and now they can execute it. And here's the last game of the season. We're getting a 7-man box against 2x2. Not much you're going to do there running the football. But we were able to run outside zone to negate that external pressure. 77 takes a nice, he kind of takes a skip step, which we put in later on in the season. He's able to get out around. That skip step's what we use for our pulls on power. So that's just one example of being able to negate that internal pressure with linebackers filling very hard. So guys, before I hop off here, I would just encourage you to stay with me for about 2 more minutes. Got a couple other things I want to show you, but before I show you that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. It's humbling to be able to do these things. I've had quite a journey in my coaching career. I've been a couple of different places. I've got to know some really good people, and I've got to see a lot of these clinics as a young coach. And now to actually be able to share some knowledge is an absolute honor. So I hope that there's something in the course of year that I share with you that strikes some sort of interest or helps you out. I would love it if you'd follow me on Twitter at Matt_Lester_. I post a lot about faith. It's very important to me. I post a lot about football and then some stuff about hunting and fishing. If you like that stuff, I would encourage you to follow me. I'd love to connect with you, love to chat with you. And then you can always email me if you'd like this PowerPoint. If you have any questions, if you want to connect, I would do a Zoom with you or a phone call, whatever you need. I'm here to help. And then lastly, I have a YouTube page. I manage with Trevin Pendleton, who actually just was named the Cincinnati Bengals Coach of the Year at Ironton High School. He's been a state runner-up his second and third year of coaching. He has most of these connections that we've gotten all these big name speakers, but our page, Call an Audible, we've been able to have multiple guys from the Ohio State staff speak, and we only have 65 subscribers. I think this website here is a hidden gem. There's a lot of good stuff on here, and there's more videos than what we're just showing. It's a really good resource for coaches, and it's all about helping each other get better. So make sure that you subscribe to that and check out that page. And then lastly, just want to give all credit and thanks to Jeff from Blockers O-Line Academy. I was thrilled to hear that he asked, thought of me to do anything at all. So hopefully this is what he wants, and hopefully people will watch this from years to come, and they will grow his site and just grow all of us as coaches. So thank you guys. Have a safe and happy New Year. I hope that you guys get to go see the Browns playoff action and the Buckeyes in national championship. But other than that, have a great day. Have a great year.